That generational thing's mad, isn't it? Stiff upper lip, just get on with it. You imagine the period that those guys lived in and grew up in. And then we always have this battle, right? Are we too soft now, and were they too hard, and do we need to find something in the middle? Because if we're being honest, it's getting a bit ridiculous now.
I'm all for the feels, right? I love the feeling the feels. But I think that we have lost the joy and the ease of life because we're so stuck in the pain and the sadness. I wanted to bring a bit of freedom and liberation and empowerment into people. It's just a movement form of doing what feels right for you, in the same way that you want to be like authentic and you want to speak in a way that feels like you're in your truth. The biggest part of it that we didn't realize that we were all desperate for is connection. Is literally feeling held in a space without shame, without judgment, with like-minded people. We think we're going there for the psilocybin or the ayahuasca or the breathwork or the sound healing. It was actually just the conversations we were having around the dinner table that we really needed the most.
I think innately we are tribal creatures, aren't we? Mm-hmm. We want to be a part of something much greater than ourselves.
The modern way of ostracizing someone would be to cancel someone, to make them feel completely alone. Okay, they're not going into solitary confinement, but they're being cancelled in their own way to the point where they feel so unsafe and so alone. And so we take connection away from people as like a form of punishment. And it's heartbreaking because ultimately it's what we're made for. And then the injury happened, operation happened, and I couldn't move. And I remember I went to see this rheumatologist and she just looked at me at 17 and she went, "You're just going to have to accept that you're never going to be able to dance again, and you are going to have probably arthritis, and by the age of 30 or 40, you may need a wheelchair." And I was like, well, fuck the world then.
Kat, welcome.
Hi.
Finally nailed you down after 6 months.
Yeah, that makes me sound really busy and important. I'm just not.
You've been jet setting, no, without a jet though, actually.
Without a jet, no, I've just been setting in a van.
3 months.
3 months we did in the van. But we were in Sri Lanka before Christmas. We are traveling a lot, running retreats.
I love it.
It's great. I can't lie.
Traveling is something that I never did did you travel as a youngster? The proper backpacking?
No.
Away
No,
now.
actually, funnily enough, my mum laughed about that the other day because she said to me, "I remember when you were 17 and you came to me and you said, 'Mum, I want to go traveling.' And you handed me this brochure of like 5-star hotels and said, 'I'm going to meet my friends in Thailand for 3 weeks.'" She was like, "That's always been your level of like traveling."
Bougie.
Yeah.
Bougie hippie.
Just kind of, literally. That's what we were saying the other day. I am that.
It's always like, I think the thought of it has always interested me because I enjoy seeing new cultures and I'm quite mixed myself within culture. So I'm confused about that anyway. So I thought if I go out and see stuff, but the idea of hostels and like, no, not cleanliness and all of that stuff you see, I don't know if I'd get on with it. I could do like hotels, don't have to be amazing hotels, but just safe hotels, and
they don't
then
need
maybe
to be 6-star. They can just be 5-star.
Well, 7 is normally what I do. 7-star. I was looking at your resume, let's say here. Let me just see how you're sitting. Just for anyone that's not watching, Kat does a lot of yoga, and she's currently sat in the Buddha pose.
Hold on. This is just how I feel comfortable, Ty. I'm sat cross-legged because for me to have a very authentic, open and honest chat, I need to feel comfortable. I was quite sat. I've already changed the chair, which you're not happy with me about because it doesn't fit with your aesthetic. But I can't be sat on an office chair to have a chat about just life in general.
We'll just say every 10 minutes if you want, like this.
Okay.
Founder of the Soul Sanctuary, which we'll go on to in a bit. A yoga teacher, which obviously I know and I'm aware of. Sound healer. I'm going to keep a straight face with some of these buzzwords. Breathwork coach. I've done a little bit of that myself. Mm-hmm. Wicked. This is my personal favorite. Free movement facilitator.
Do you want to know what that means?
Well, it sounds like a job title you'd want from like a boss to look good on the bottom of your email footer.
Like head of happiness.
Yeah. And retreat host, obviously. But what's a free movement facilitator?
So maybe free movement's what I've always called it. Maybe you could call it somatic movement, embodied movement. It's basically getting people to be less rigid. Like we go, especially in yoga, the asana is very much, you have your alignment. A lot of people know it as like Ashtanga, where there's like a set sequence. So my background is in dancing. It's all about being fluid. And I always really struggled with choreography and remembering things. So I just wanted to go off and do my own thing. Everyone would else be in time with one another and I'll be like, fine. I've got my own thing going on, guys. I'm fine. And so I wanted to bring a bit of freedom and liberation and empowerment into people. And it's just a movement form of doing what feels right for you, in the same way that you want to be like authentic and you want to speak in a way that feels like you're in your truth. It's like, if you feel really angry, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, fucking right.
If you feel really pissed off, or you're really full of rage, or you're really angry, like move with that, like stamp your feet, like, you know, move your fists, whatever it might be.
So I can like envision it. So if we came, is it a class?
Should we do it?
Yeah, well, I can do a little bit if you
Should
want.
we do it?
I'm thinking of the New Zealand rugby dance all of a sudden.
Oh
you know,
my God.
the haka or whatever they call
But
it.
again, like sequenced. That's like perfectly timed. So this is all about, like, no one will be doing the same thing. And it's all about, all you're doing is you're playing, so at least me, I play different types of music. And so it might be usually I'll get people dancing to a song that they know. Mm-hmm. So it might be something like, I don't know, it might be a Queen song or something. And for the first part, it will just be loosening them up, and they'll literally be dancing sober to a song they already know. And they won't even be thinking about necessarily how they feel. But then the idea is you start to change the music to things maybe they don't know so well. Each different song has a different feeling and evokes a different feeling within people. I'll have people like swaying and crying. I'll have people like stamping and like letting out their anger. And it's a form of embodied release, because a lot of the time, especially women, we're made to feel obviously that we're too emotional. So it's a space to literally lean into every single emotion. And also getting them to be like sensual and sexual without shame. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time it will be in a group of women as well. So there's no male gaze to make them feel like they're not safe or anything like that. No offense to males. Mm-hmm. But that's unfortunately what we've grown up with. So that's free movement, embodied movement.
It just made me think of like, if you're out and a song comes on that you love, everyone's a little bit rigid, right? Because they're worrying about how the other person thinks they look when they're dancing.
Unless they've had like alcohol.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Unless you're under the substance and you can't think straight. But when you're in your own room, when you're in the shower, when you're at home, you might make like weird movements.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining now a room of say 8-10 people making some real weird.
But like, how empowering could it be to be the version of you when you're like cooking and like you're singing? It doesn't matter what it sounds like. It doesn't matter what it looks like. You're like shaking your ass. You're like, I don't know, twerking up against the wall. Who knows? I don't know what you do when you're cooking, Ty. But it's almost
normally a microwave.
1 minute.
Or Deliveroo.
Ding. But how empowering, especially for, like I say, especially for women, to be in a space where they can be that version of themselves without any shame and without any judgment around one another, and to be championing each other for it. Like, we'll do it where, especially over the course of a retreat, when we've kind of gone through different days, we'll then do it where you mirror someone's movement. So one person is almost like the performer, and they are literally being watched. So it'd be like, you're moving and I'm watching you and I'm doing everything that you're doing. And then we'll do it where they get a bit more confident and they stand in the middle of the group of 20 people and they've got 20 people watching what they're doing.
Oh, that's nervous.
And it's scary. It makes you feel like already you're just a bit like, oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, the thought of it.
And I have people, I've had a woman on my retreat stand there, arms crossed, just mouthing like, what the fuck is this? Day one, she was like, I'm not doing this. This is fucking stupid.
It strikes me as something for people that are willing to explore and not too stuck.
But I agree. I would also say that it's almost like even if you are that stuck person, because she was like that on day one, by day 5, she was like, this is everything I needed and more. Honestly. Yeah, and it is because we get, especially when, as soon as you start adulting, You've got the bills to pay, you've got the mortgage, maybe you've got kids or you've got parents that you need to look after, you've got friends. There's always a job to be done. It's not only is it about feeling, it's also about being silly. It's about laughing. It's about not taking yourself too seriously. And it's just about being free in all sense.
I've sort of come to realize, and I think I read somewhere too, that like the older you get and the more about like finding yourself is actually just going back to the things you enjoyed as a kid.
Yep.
That silliness, that playfulness.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just rammed out of us as life gets in the way. And we have to act serious, and we have to act a certain way. And you know, I have my silly moments with certain crowds and certain people when I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, the coffee shop we both go to, in there I'm silly because it feels safe to me as a space.
Same.
It feels safe.
But that was almost why I was kind of a bit nervous about coming on the podcast. I was like, I know, like we know each other differently to then not the version that you portray, but obviously there are certain things that people, especially as like a yoga teacher, a sound healer, a space holder, stop laughing.
I love it.
A crystal collector.
Yeah, I love it.
There's certain things that people assume that you should be. You can't, although you can, you don't have down days. You don't have angry days. You're just like this kind of zen, calm person all the time. You're not silly, but we have some ridiculous conversations.
Yeah.
We sometimes have some deep conversations, but we have some really stupid conversations as well.
Yeah. Maybe not for everyone's ears.
Mostly brought on by you.
Maybe it's the other girl that normally.
The other girl.
I don't want to drop her name in.
That friend.
Yeah, your friend. Your friend, may I add. Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? That kind of. We were talking off air that I always find with like your groups of friends, you've got different groups that you can talk about different things with, and especially as a guy, I think there's certain groups of mates I hang around with that, and I said to you, it's like, can I say that to them? Like I'm feeling a bit like this, or I don't know, the group's always a pretty macho and whatever, and loads of banter, which is fine, but sometimes you've got to get beyond the banter, haven't you? Because there's a lot of the time when people are smiling and always positive, there's quite a deep pain behind there.
Or like for so many of us. Have you ever been on a men's retreat?
No, I spoke to you, didn't I, about it, a retreat, not this January, last January.
Yeah.
I thought about the tail end of 22 for me was tough going into 23. And I was a bit like, I need to get away and reset. I felt like I was getting back onto that hamster wheel that I was on pre-COVID. And I remember I said to you, I might go and do like a silent retreat.
Yeah,
because
a
friend of ours, Lucy Lord, went and did one in Bali, I told you. And I was like, I don't know if I could do a silent retreat because I can't shut up. But I thought maybe that's the challenge I need. Or like no phone or something. In my head, I thought, can I go somewhere for 5 days, disconnect from the internet, which is really important for me because I feel like I can't. I'm like even now, right? My phone's over there.
Yeah.
And out of habit, not out of anxiety, but out of habit.
You're like, where is it?
I keep trying to touch it and hold it. But it's not about like doing anything on it.
No, but it's just like, it's just an addiction as well. It's
sometimes I'll hold it in my hand like that. But for no reason. It's so odd.
Oh,
but yeah, I'd like to do a retreat. I even spoke to you about one of your ones, but I think the few that you had. Well, it
was surf and yoga, which actually you would have loved because it was a little. We have a few more guys on the surf and yoga ones.
I can't surf.
No, neither can anyone.
Okay,
no, everyone comes and nobody can surf. It's magical. It is the best. It is the best experience witnessing grown adults, literally going back to what we were just talking about, grown adults trying to surf, just getting slammed by like tiny waves, thinking that they're in like the depths of the ocean. And everyone comes out just elated, whether you caught a wave or you didn't. Yes, it can be frustrating, but it is such a good lesson for life. And so the surf and yoga ones would be good. And we still go deep. We still do like the breath work. We still do the meditation. We still do a lot of the movement, the sharing circles, which are the best part.
Sharing circle. What's that? Where you just sort of tell your truth?
Yeah, you just whatever's
they
alive. They
strike me of like a psychedelic retreat, but almost without the substance, without the journey and the.
Pretty much, because you can still have a psychedelic type experience through sound healing. You can still go there because it's altering the brain state towards a theta brain state.
You
can do that. Yeah. Oh, we should get you to go sound healing.
Can you do it locally?
There are people. I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't recommend anyone. You want to find someone that's really good.
But where do you do yours? Only abroad on the retreats?
Yeah. I'm doing one in Dorset this weekend, but it's on a retreat. But yeah.
Breathwork From my understanding, I've only done a little bit of it, but from my understanding, you can get into a state almost
Absolutely, exactly the
psychedelic.
same. So like a conscious connected breath work, you can get into, again, that kind of like theta, imagination, brain state. So all of these practices, even without the psychedelics, the retreats are like that. And also what we actually forget a lot of the time is we're doing all of these healing modalities, but actually the one thing that is the biggest part of it that we didn't realize that we were all desperate for is connection. Is literally feeling held in a space without shame, without judgment, with like-minded people, not always like-minded people actually, maybe people that also challenge you. But we think we're going there for the psilocybin or the ayahuasca or the breath work or the sound healing. And what we didn't realize is it was actually just the conversations we were having around the dinner table that we really needed the most. Like that gives me goosebumps. That is what I want to create for people.
I think innately we are tribal creatures, aren't we? Mm-hmm. We want to be a part of something much greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
And you've only got to look at our the system, the structure we have.
Yeah.
If we want to punish a human, what do? We isolate them in a 6x4 box. We put them in a prison cell.
Yeah.
Biggest punishment you can do to a human, because humans want to interact. And that's what I found with like even these kind of social running clubs, all the stuff that we've done post-lockdown 1 has all been not necessarily money-making, but community
coming
building.
Together. And it's like the way, even if not in a prison, but like the modern way of, ostracizing someone would be to cancel someone, to make them feel completely alone.
I didn't think of it like that.
It's exactly the same. Okay, they're not going into solitary confinement, but they're being cancelled in their own way to the point where they feel so unsafe and so alone. And it's just a modern version of that. And we take connection away from people as like a form of punishment. And it's heartbreaking, because ultimately it's what we're made for, whether it's romantic, platonic, whatever it is, just to laugh with someone. Like we go to the coffee shop we go to connect with people.
Absolutely.
Like we go there every morning.
Like a social.
Yeah. And we just have a laugh, because especially now that so many of us work for ourselves, we work on our own. I go up to my studio, I film yoga to a camera. There's no one there laughing at my jokes. They're amazing. So I have to go to a coffee shop to get you guys to laugh with me.
The content creation kind of job, and you do a lot of that, is quite a lonely one, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Like, because
I'm not a lover
as
of
a
it.
consumer, and a little bit of a creator, I guess, through this, but as a consumer of it, when you watch it, it evokes all sorts of emotion in you, right? Whether it's a yoga class, whether it's like a TikTok of someone reciting a fucking quote with some emotive music in the background. Yeah. I watch a lot of these at night, and I use it as a moment of like.
We need to stop that.
No, but I use it as a moment of kind of reflection and a way of escape without using anything. Yeah. So if I want to numb the noise in my head, because it doesn't stop a lot, one of the ways you would do it is that you put yourself for a real physical challenge, right? Like you might run, you might do ice water therapy. And the other thing is being super engaged into something that allows me to hyper focus.
You could read a book.
Yeah. So
doesn't have blue light.
Books I try, books I go on and off with. Yeah. So sometimes I read for 2 months really well, and then I just cannot be
also, because you just need a really good book, right? And unless you've got a really good book, then your brain's just here, there, and everywhere.
This is so even like, and our concentration spans have got so shit now. So like even with a film, I'll put a film on or a Netflix series or whatever, and within 3 minutes, I find myself reaching for my phone. And I'm like, what am I doing? But so sometimes when it's short pieces of information, short form video, like 30 seconds, 40 seconds, but the best parts of something. So like the best part of a podcast, you see a lot on a
then
TikTok.
But you've got to trust that the algorithm is giving you something that is actually feeding you for the better. Because what we don't realize is that our algorithm feeds one thing that you don't even consciously realize had triggered something, but then deep down in the subconscious, something's been triggered. You're going to bed and then maybe you feel like you've slept well, but there's other things going on, and you maybe don't realize why the next day you're having a bit of a crappy day, but actually it's all been a knock-on of this one thing that you may have seen. Like we're pretty good in our house. Like we have some pretty strict rules. Like we have no phones in the bedroom. So phones so phones.
I ain't staying at yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
I guess can do what they want. Phones are charged outside of the bedroom. Like if in the daytime you're in there, then obviously it's a little bit different.
Is that a radiation in the room vibe, or is that more as like to disconnect?
Yeah, it's to disconnect. It's so that in the first hour, so I wake up with a Lumia alarm clock. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Best thing ever. So I wake up to the sound of birds tweeting and a little light coming on. And then ideally, my first hour of the day is without any phone or any technology. It depends. This morning, I realized I hadn't looked where the location of the podcast was. And so I was like, I better get Google Maps out. So there's obviously always going to be times, but my first hour of the day, get up, go make a cup of tea, drink some water, journal, or read. And I know and people will be like, I don't have time for that. That for me is a priority. So if I have to leave the house, even if I had to leave the house at 6, I set my alarm at 5.
So that's like your non-negotiable.
Absolutely.
Every day.
Every day. And like I say, there's always going to be times. We don't have a TV, but we do.
Hang on. Fuck me, this is getting hippie like. Go on.
No.
So what, you two just sit with your legs crossed with a dog, no TV, just going on to each other?
I wish. No.
No TV at all?
No, we have no TV, but we have laptops.
Okay.
And so we still watch stuff. I'm not going to sit here and preach that I don't watch things. Love me some Amazon Prime, love me some Netflix.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like everyone needs a little bit of escapism in their lives. Like we'll watch something. It's more that I don't know what it is. I love that our lounge is just a place it's like a really tranquil space.
I can imagine it now.
It's loads of plants. It's like dark walls, like green velvet sofas. And it's just like when people come round.
I imagined it. I imagined it more neutral with plants.
Well, that was
more Bali-esque.
Yeah, so that was what I wanted. And then I got offered these free sofas.
From Austin Powers, by the sounds of it.
They're amazing.
Velvet.
They're amazing. But like we definitely watch stuff. Mm-hmm. But we do it on the laptop. And yeah, okay, it's not like some big surround sound, but it does what you got to do. And it also means that you don't get to get the laptop out and to do that, because it's not this whole big wow feature on the TV. There's always another option like, okay, why don't we listen to music tonight? Or why don't we, I don't know, walk the dog? Like we go to bed super early as well.
But you're up early.
Yeah, I start my wind down at like 8 p.m.
And what time do you get into bed?
Like 9?
What time would you fall asleep, let's say?
Oh, I don't fall asleep until maybe about like 9:30. So maybe 10 o'clock. I'm sometimes a bit of an anxious sleeper.
That's early, but it's not that early.
It's not really, but like you got to remember that some people say that they sleep from 10 till 6, but they go to bed at 10.
Yeah.
And then they're not really asleep until
There's devices for that.
Yeah, and so what did you find out?
Well, I found out that I actually wasn't sleeping
at all
long enough to sustain long-term life. You know, like if you sleep, I can't remember what it was. I mean, I'm going to butcher this, but if you sleep less than 6 hours a night for a decade, your chances of X is whatever percent more.
But isn't it mad that that's literally how we used to live? Like I used to go out drinking and get home at like 12 o'clock, 1 a.m. in the morning, and then get up at 6 a.m. to go to work. So I'd be like sleep for 4 hours. And I was like, oh no, I can do that. It's fine.
Yeah, I just at that period of your life, yeah, it's fucking reckless, isn't it? But you don't really think about it.
No, but maybe you've got more energy because you're younger.
I look at like now. So last night I looked at this Whoop and I clicked on it and I thought, right, I need to be 85% recovered because I might run in the morning. But I literally, my brain has shifted since I've had it, and it's actually thanks to one of my friends, Chris Billam-Smith, the boxer. So he's had the Whoop. He got me onto the Whoop, and Chris will miss running with us in the morning if he prioritizes sleep over everything.
Yeah, that's like
right?
Luke's like that as well.
Absolute goat with it. Like,
yeah.
But I never understood it. I was like, mate, it's better to run, you know, and I'm slowly getting into the mood. So as I was going to bed last night, I had a look and it said if I went to bed by 10:50 and got up at 6:30, I would be 85% recovered. And 85% recovered, I'm happy to go for a run. That's green recovery, you know, in my head.
Yeah.
So I switched off what I was watching and I went to bed. But I messaged into the boys group this morning, or the running group, sorry, and last night, and I said, guys, I might be there at Ounce this morning at 7:15.
Yeah.
But if I'm not run, it means I've had a shit night's sleep and I'd rather stay in bed for another hour.
Nice.
That's never been me.
Yeah.
So I used to be a part of this fucking toxic narrative of work till midnight and then back up at 4 fucking working again, as if you have to.
And also as if it makes any difference.
Yeah, as if you have to do that though to be successful. Like there's that narrative. It's slowly changing now, but a couple of years ago it was really bad about like this working yourself to the bone to be successful.
But I do think to a point, that message is still out there, and not to call out like a very famous podcaster. He is, and will openly say that he's like absolutely like work obsessed. But I don't, and I hear him talk about it often, and I'm like, we really shouldn't be putting that message out there. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's healthy. I think if you work for yourself, your brain doesn't ever stop working anyway. Like my brain doesn't stop working, but my hours of physically working are much shorter. Like I tend to not work after like 4 p.m., 3 p.m.
I mean, you're fortunate that you can do that, right? So I've just found what I've discovered over time is I used to be that guy. So I'd be between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. on my laptop.
Yeah.
9 a.m. to sort of 6 p.m. would be meetings and coffees and actual like shit, but not doing any work.
Yeah.
You know, visions and ideas.
But that's one of the biggest things is meetings. People were like literally in meetings. Like I have friends who have jobs and they are in meetings from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I'm like, but when do you do the actual work?
There you go. And a meeting's about meetings.
Yeah.
And so 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. then I would be doing work again, right? So, and that I just thought that was really normal. But what I discovered is actually I can only concentrate for 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like productively. So now, and this is post-COVID as well, my non-negotiable daily is exercise. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to be anything, like it doesn't have to be running every morning. No. It could be a walk along the beachfront. Yeah. It's just getting outdoors, I guess.
Yeah, nature.
Getting some sun, doing something in the morning to set me up.
I'm exactly
every single day. It's my non-negotiable. I will not put in meetings. Like this is early for me, this podcast. Because in my head, I'm like, I haven't had my social buzz at the coffee shop.
Yeah,
I have, I've come from home here. I feel like I haven't had that.
So you didn't even go to the coffee shop?
I did this morning after the run, but like normally I would go again for another hour. But like I haven't done the things that, so like for me it's like probably 10 till 2, 11 till 3, that kind of period.
I would say I am pretty much the same as that.
However, contrary to that, because I was speaking to someone about this the other day, if you are trying to get somewhere in life, whether that be business, whether that be sport, anything, there has got to be a period in your life where you are fucking obsessed.
Yeah, you're like, it's a hustle season.
And there's no balance. Yeah. Because you cannot really win without being 100%. And that 100% cuts out the balance.
And my husband would probably say that I sit here and say, oh yeah, I only work like 10 till 3. But he would probably argue that I'm actually obsessed. Because what I forget is that when I run a retreat, like so this weekend coming, I don't think of this kind of thing as work. This is absolutely work, right? This is 100% work. In my head, I'll be like, right, so when you get home, then you're going to start work. This weekend, I'm going to be running a retreat, which is unbelievably full on. Thursday, tomorrow, prep. Friday, I get there. Guest leave on Monday. I haven't taken a day off. So, and I don't get a weekend because I'm working. But because my jobs are all so separate, I have this weird thing where I'll tell myself that I only work like 10 till 3 on like the admin side of things. But then I'm not having a weekend because I'm running retreats. But I love them. It's all very confusing in my brain.
Isn't that societal norms though programmed us that work is admin based and like sat at a desk? So maybe subliminally you don't see that as work. One, because you fucking love it.
Yeah.
And that's the same. That's the danger of what I was doing. I love what I do.
Yeah.
And secondly, I'm told that work is meetings, right? That's the adult thing to do. And sitting at a laptop and doing admin.
And also because when a lot of people look at the jobs that we are doing, like this being work, like they'll just be like, well, that's not really, people will shame it, right? They'll be like, that's not work. You know, me running a retreat, it's not work, you get to travel. I'm like, try hosting a retreat for 20 fabulous humans that you want to show up for every second of that retreat. That's the most amount of work that I ever put into my job, into any of my jobs.
Is it exhausting?
Oh, absolutely.
I imagine it to be.
Like it is, but in like, in the best possible way. Like at the end, it depends how long. This retreat that I've got coming up is only 3 nights. So they're slightly less exhausting in some ways, but especially like the end of like the 5-night and 6-night ones, I get to the end of them and I'm broken, but I am so fulfilled and I am so in awe of the people and what they have, how they've connected, what they've done, that it's almost dangerous, because that then adrenaline doesn't then allow you to rest, because you're so excited, and yes, you're exhausted, but you're so happy and so excited that you then just continue going on and on. Like I have to fully, like next week, I was meant to have some days off this week and then I kind of forgot. So next week, I did kind of have half of yesterday off. So next week I'll be like, right, I need to recharge. Absolutely. But it's hard because Soul Sanctuary is a full-time job. And when you're on a retreat, it's a full-time job. And social media these days is a full-time job.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, you have to just somehow find a balance.
I always find, so being part of being a promoter in nightclubs and festivals, there's a lot of hosting, schmoozing, small talk, and you have to always show up and you have to engage. And even you might have had a row at home, someone might have passed away, but when you turn up, it's game face on, right? You can't project that onto everyone.
Nope.
So everything's okay. And the fear I have, and the fear probably what's happening to me now, and I probably should deal with it, is that I feel stuck in that mode sometimes.
Yeah.
So I then don't know when to turn that character off.
Yeah.
And when to just chill. And I feel like with what you do,
it's hard though when you're like people facing.
Always.
It's really hard. So my Sri Lanka retreat, so last year was a really intense year for me, and I don't think I realized how burnt out I was, and I don't think I realized how, I don't want to use the word depression, because even though it was depression, I'm not quite okay with that, because I think I deal with it very differently to maybe what the textbook terminology would be. But I got to my Sri Lanka retreat, and 30 minutes before my guests arrived, I had a full-blown panic attack and I just cried. And my guests were literally arriving, 20 guests for 6 nights. And I just cried to Luke and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I am broken. I have nothing to give these people. I have nothing. And it feels obviously nervous, like admitting that in a way, but like I am just a human being.
Of course.
But these people are paying a lot of money to come and have the experience of a lifetime. You know, a lot of them, like these retreats change their lives. They're transformational. And I'm like, how do I, and I was berating myself, punishing myself. How do I have the audacity to stand in front of these people? And then just the most beautiful thing happened. I was just very honest and very, you know, I didn't tell them, obviously, the depths of how I was feeling and how broken I was. A lot of people could see I was going through some skin issues at the time. It was very obvious that I was struggling and that I was very obviously in like a lot of physical pain. But it was almost like through giving the retreat to them, they like, I can't explain it. It sounds so gloriously and beautifully woo-woo, which I love, but they healed me. They did. Their energy and the way that they'd held themselves, the way they connected, the way they were so graceful with accepting like changes in the schedule and just everything. Like they literally made that experience for me what it was.
Wow.
And it was just, yeah. And I finished it and I thought I was going to feel 1,000 times worse than when I went into it.
Do you ever feel like, I don't know what the right term is for it, kind of an imposter syndrome, in the sense that who am I to tell these people how to live their life? Do you ever get that feeling?
Yes, but not in that way. So I don't get it in that way because I don't see myself as telling people. I see myself as like, I guess the term would be like a way shower. Like I'm sort of saying to people, here are your options. These are all the things that I do, be it like free movement, yoga, breath, sound, whatever it is, sharing circles, connection. I'm going to offer you all of these things. Some will resonate, some won't. And take what you need and leave the rest behind. So I don't get the imposter syndrome in that side of things. To be honest, the best I feel in my life, the most authentic I feel is when I'm holding space on retreat. I feel just so confident, so empowered, so liberated. But I do, funnily enough, get it coming and doing things like this.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm like, why would they want to talk to me? Like, what do I have to, what do I have? Like, I'm not like I said to you before, like I've always struggled with not feeling academic. It's something I really struggle with. Like, I don't know big fancy words. I'm not, even though I can be quite eloquent in some ways, I always think I use very basic words. Not that that's like the sign of intelligence, but I'm not very good at like reciting facts to you. You know how like you'll have some guests on who are like, well, there's this stat and this is why this. If you said to me, well, why do you do it? I'm going to turn around and say, because it feels amazing. I'm all about how it feels. And so, yes, I get the imposter syndrome, but I definitely get it more from like this side of things.
It isn't exactly that what makes life so beautiful, though.
Yeah.
Because if everyone walked around with a load of stats, how fucking boring would it be? Do you understand what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure.
We have these experts and everyone has their own field and does their own thing. And I said to you before we came on air, like, I've been on 3 podcasts probably myself as a guest. And I always think like, the fuck do they want to know from a little like immigrant kebab man's son that's come to England? You know, like, what have I got to give? And I said to you, you don't know, we don't know. You know, when we do all this stuff that we do, similar to me, I put the cheesy quotes up online a lot and I get hammered for it, but I love it, right?
Yeah.
That's like my thing. And when I say to you, I share that, it's because I get up in the morning feeling a certain way, or when I have my little TikTok stroll at night, I share some of the darkest, deepest stuff because I might spend 10 minutes on my own in a lounge before going upstairs of like consuming this thing, and it gets me really thinking. And if I've read something and I feel like it's helped me, why the hell wouldn't I share it? I'd be doing a disservice to humanity.
Yeah.
Because in my eyes, I'm going to put it up and let's say 10 people look at it. 9 of them are going to go, fuck, this idiot's on about again.
But
one of them is going to read that and go, and you get those messages. It's exactly what I needed to read today. Thank you so much. Randoms.
But I think that's what has almost been forgotten in this world of social media and numbers is that everyone's striving for like the biggest engagement. Everyone's striving to like reach as many people. And yeah, that's great. I mean, obviously I would love for my teachings to reach so many people because ultimately I truly believe that the limbs, the paths of yoga can have the ability to transform and change your life. However, if just one, like I will never forget when I first started blogging, before I was a teacher, before Instagram was a thing, I was a blogger. And I was writing about my eating disorder. And I was talking about my recovery and how it was going. And I just had an email from someone I'd never met. I didn't even think anyone other than like my mum read my blog. And she sent me this beautiful email and just said, I just want you to know that this has like just given me so much food for thought and that I've had like my first day of not purging and it just felt incredible. And I want to say that I really owe that to what you wrote. And I was like, one person. Incredible, if you can change one person's day, it doesn't even need to be their life, but if you can change their next hour, how special is that to be able to like offer that to someone, to gift that to someone? There's
nothing more fulfilling, is there? No. Weirdly. As cliche as it sounds.
I know. But we get so wrapped up in needing more of everything. That's just, I guess, the culture that we live in.
Absolutely. Kat, one thing I want to discover with you is like, we all do these things at the age we're at now.
Yeah.
But as we've spoken about before, a lot of it comes from when you're growing up, right?
Yeah.
To understand how someone or why someone is the way they are now, generally, as you would do in any therapy session, you kind of head back to their childhood and try and understand why and where that drive might come from. You know, the drive for me to succeed in quote unquote in a financial term came from trying to fit in as a young lad. I've told you this before, and thinking that all my friends that I thought looked happy, their parents were quite wealthy, and I thought, okay, so if we have this thing called money, maybe we're going to be happy as a family. Maybe mum and dad are going to be able to eat. Maybe no one's going to cry. You know, as a young kid.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, we'll do it that way. But yours is a little bit different, right? Because it's kind of, you've gone down that like bit more spiritual, bit more kind of healing route. And I think it was Mike Tyson that said like, and this might not be the case for you, but he said something along the lines of, you don't understand the amount of violence it took to be this gentle. And it resonated with me beautifully. And it doesn't necessarily mean violence like he went through from fighting.
No, but it's like self-punishment, right?
Something in your
like
head
sabotage.
To be so gentle. Yeah, like I like to think I'm quite a gentle person now, like kind, thoughtful.
Yeah.
But when I look back at my childhood, my upbringing, although I had unconditional love from my parents, it wasn't always like that.
No.
And it was sometimes a horrible place and a dark place in here and weird things going on and doing things that I'm ashamed of now, embarrassed of now. So I sort of think it kind of resonates, not in a violent sense.
Yeah.
Now, with you, what was childhood like? Like, what was like upbringing? Where were you born? What was that whole? Give me that.
So I'm from like North London, so Hertfordshire. Call it North London because we want to be in London, but we're not.
Posh, innit, Hertfordshire?
No, well, parts of it are, not the part that we were from.
Anything with Shire for me sounds posh.
No, we were not in the posh part of Hertfordshire at all. My mum was a hairdresser, my dad's a goldsmith, and I think that a lot of people have the assumption that a goldsmith, because it's in jewellery, is a very sort of like fancy job. He's a craftsman. He works at a bench. He has like battered hands and works hours and hours and hours for people that have all the money. He did not. So my parents worked 6 days a week, and I was really, I always feel quite conflicted about, especially in therapy, going back and talking about my childhood, because I have, I know I had an amazing childhood, and I know that my parents like did so much for us. But it's sometimes hard to then admit that sometimes the things that they did for us, though was coming from an amazing place, actually was detrimental sometimes. And that's really challenging because I love my parents, like they're epic, but I sometimes have to sit with it and admit that at times maybe they were wrong and that things...
It's generational trauma, isn't it?
Exactly. So, parents working 6 days a week, and then on the one day that they're at home, they're just cleaning the house. You're always kind of, when there's three kids, you're kind of like always fighting for someone's attention. My brother was, typically older brother, bullied me a bit. He didn't do the whole protective brother thing at all. I like desperately wanted a protective brother. Couldn't give a shit, to be honest. And so he was a little bit mean to me. So growing up, I think I was quite desperate for attention. I put a lot of my time into gymnastics and dancing. My parents were incredibly, for how busy they were with work, they would ferry me to and from classes, which is obviously part of how I've ended up where I am today. So I'm so grateful to them for that. But then in school, I really struggled. I struggled because and I guess this obviously comes from at home, being desperate to be liked and to have the attention. I was like that in school. And then because of that, was then kind of as a knock-on bullied for that, because when you're so desperate to be liked, you're an easy target. And I, I did not great things, like things I'm, like you said, not proud of. Like, I haven't, done anything terrible, but, I stole money from my dad. I stole, I'm not talking I stole like thousands of pounds, but I would like steal £20 out of his wallet just so that I could go and buy something that other people had. Because though we had my parents, and I'm so grateful to them now, but what they valued was going on like a holiday. And it wasn't like a fancy holiday, but they put their money into taking us away. We didn't have like,
Things.
We definitely had things. I absolutely was not. But, I remember being able to buy my first pair of Reebok Classics and it being like the biggest, most monumental day of my life. And
what a time to be alive.
But then you never guess what I did? Left them on the bus.
Oh.
And then I was not allowed to get another pair. Unless I obviously like have found the money somewhere. And so I was...
So you found it from his wallet?
I'm sorry, Dad. And so I did these things that kind of weren't very nice. I'm not proud of that kind of version, but I guess I was just a young girl that was like desperate to fit in. And so then I worked for my dad. I got a job when I was like 13. I was like, okay, so the only way, and my whole idea was that if I looked a certain way and I had certain things, people would like me. Oh my gosh. I'm just like, little girl, I want to cuddle you so much. And that was what I thought. I thought if I had all these things, and so I thought, well, if I get a job, then I can get money, and it's my own money. No one can tell me what to do with it, and I get to spend it on what I want. And that was pretty much me from the age of like 13. When I was 17, I had 4 jobs, and I was still in sixth form, and I snapped my ACL. I had a knee reconstruction.
I feel like that fitting in piece. And like, if I have these things, people are going to like me and we're going to fit in. It's sadly almost a rite of passage for us as kids.
Yeah.
boy or girl, like whatever, like even it doesn't even matter if you're, you know, poor in the sense and you want things, or you're the upper echelon and you're trying to fit in with.
We all want more, right?
And one more and two to actually just fit in.
Yeah.
To be liked.
Yeah.
For someone to say like, and I wrote something down as you were saying all that. So like, I feel a lot of that, what you've just said there, the way I interpret it is actually just wanting attention.
Literally.
Probably more than fitting in.
I just want love. I just want people to love me.
Even that.
I want to be enough.
Taking the small amount of money could be a cry for attention.
Oh, well, I think, but I don't think that was the cry for attention because I don't actually think my dad will never listen to this, which is why I've said it, but I've never even told my dad. Like, so.
I'll email it to him. What's his email?
So I don't think that side of it was the cry for attention, but there was like kind of a bit of it was weird. For somebody that did gymnastics and did dancing, there was, even though I could go to those things and I could perform, in the house, especially with my granddad, if you showed any form of like emotion, so if you cried, my granddad would tell you to stop showing off. And when I went to secondary school, because I did my gymnastics, and my mum, bless her, she like regrets this so much, but she said to me, just make sure whatever you do, you don't show off, because people bully show-offs. And so I spent my years of between 7 and 18 of like dim, like make myself smaller. I honestly, I couldn't even tell you how I've ended up. Like, wow. I genuinely, I'm like, I don't know how, and this is why when people want to interview me for like business podcasts, I'm like, I don't know. It just happened.
You reminded me of that. Have you watched Coach Carter?
Yes.
When he stands up.
Yeah.
I mean, you've literally described that.
Exactly. That's what it is.
So I wonder whether all of that just built up, and then it's exploded outwards, which is what's appeared now.
But I still definitely have the doubt. It's still the doubt and the not enoughness is still. But
does that ever go? Because I don't think.
I think we all have it to a degree.
I speak to a 50-year-old friend of mine who's got a couple $100 million in the bank, and he still thinks he's not good enough.
Yeah, I think every single person.
About?
But I mean, like, you know, material things mean nothing.
But in his eyes, that's all from a success perspective, if that's what he wanted to get to.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is he's written the book on how to get there.
But
if we're just in that sector.
Yeah.
That still feels
not enough.
Like there's.
But I think that's
human nature.
So yeah, and it's heartbreaking and it's so sad.
Yeah.
Makes me feel sad for like just like everyone. Like, and like I see it in my parents.
You're an empath, aren't you?
Well, no.
You're not.
No, they would surprise
you. Fucking hide that well.
So I actually had. So have you ever heard numerology?
I don't know if I have. Is it another buzzword?
So there's so like obviously astrology, kind of like you have your moon sign, your sun sign, your rising. Numerology is looking at like your character based on the numbers. So the date that you're born, the name that you were given. So every letter has a number. And then there's numbers 1 to 9, and they all mean different things. And everyone can have like different parts of different numbers. Every year is a different number. I know it sounds a bit mental. You need to go and Google it.
No, I'm trying to process it. Yeah.
And I remember when I had like a one-to-one with this woman, and I'm a number 3. Is like my main number, and it was like it's the sunshine number. So it's like you brighten the place up, like you're like high energy, but you lack emotion.
You lack emotion.
I was devastated. I read that report.
I think that's broken.
No, I read that report and I was like, it's not true. I was like, numerology means nothing to me. I was so triggered. I was so triggered, and I was like, why am I so triggered? Why am I so annoyed that this piece of paper has told me that I lack emotional connection? But I now, since getting that, I can see what it means. I cannot necessarily see it, but the reason that what makes me good at holding space on retreats is that people around me can share, and they can be in all of their beautiful raw pain, and I won't take it on.
Okay.
Right? Because like an empath, you would take it on.
I struggle with that.
You would literally be
cry.
like, but I could cry. I can still cry. Like sometimes, like if my mum or my sister come on my retreat, it's a bit different. And sometimes people will share something that feels very, very close to home. And absolutely, it will do something and I'll cry, but I won't take it on. And also, I am sometimes quite cold. And that's been really, really hard for me to admit. I can hold a grudge to my darling husband for quite a long time. He'll be like, can we be friends now? Like, no, not ready.
So this is interesting. So, man, I would never expect it.
No.
But this goes back to what we spoke about earlier, right? The external character that we play versus the internal person that we are. Now, externally, you come across very emotional, in a good way, an empath, thoughtful, not cold, polar fucking opposite. All these things that you see in the...
Because I am all of those things as well, right?
This is the mad thing, right? But so if I come into the coffee shop ever and just be a little bit of me, but not be the big persona that they all see when I go in and go, oi, oi, and I mess around and, give everyone a load of love and loads of energy and I'm smiling.
And a load of shit.
Yeah, and a load of shit. And I just come in being actually how I feel. They're like, everything all right? Something wrong? I'm like, no, actually, I'm feeling completely content today.
Yeah.
So actually, the guy that's coming in doing all of that circus dancing bear shit, is that even me? Or is that who I think people think I should be?
Or is that just the version of you that you're... It's so hard because I fully agree. Like yesterday, I went to the coffee shop and Ben asked me, how you feeling today? And I was like, I'm actually really low energy. Oh no, it was Monday. And I was like, I love Mondays. And I was like, I'm really low energy. But I could say that because it was only him and I in there. Had you have been in there, had Hayley have been in there, had everyone else been in there, I'd have probably been taken away by like the atmosphere and been all like, hey, everybody. And I think that we've all got a little bit of everything. But I now look at that numerology reading and I see it through very different eyes from the person that first read it. The person that first read it was like, how dare you say that about a yogi? How dare you say that, about somebody that's like doing all of these holistic healing practices. But I'm like, actually, it's that makes me really, really good at doing some of the things that I have to do in my job.
Hi guys, while I've got you, I wanted to announce an exciting new sponsor for the show. For those that know me or listen regularly, you'll know that I'm a big combat sports fan, and some of my favourite kit to use when training is by a brand called Venom. Fellow combat sports fans will know Venom as the UFC's official outfitting apparel partner. They have clothing and equipment for MMA, boxing, Muay Thai and BJJ. However, what I'm most excited about is their new lifestyle range, some of which I'll be rocking on the show. It's a privilege to partner with a global brand such as Venom. Will it make me a better athlete? Probably not, but at least I'll look good doing it. Playing devil's advocate. If we go back to the ignorance is bliss piece, if that person had never told you that, you'd have carried on living as you were. And that person's told you that. And now, do we get to a position, I spoke about this with Paul Mort on this podcast, the guy I was telling you about earlier, do we start, and he's like anti-therapy to an extent, because he said we use it as a fucking excuse. We start going, I'm sorry I'm acting like this. This happened in my childhood and it's affecting me now. And he said at some point you've got to fucking own your
I think there's got to be
shit.
a balance.
And
but also then that's not being accountable, right? Like he's looking at it from a point of view as like, oh, like this happened and that's why I'm like treating you like shit. Like, no, be accountable for like, I'm not going to be just because this happened in my childhood.
But a lot of people do that is what he was saying.
For sure. But I'm a big fan of therapy and I journal every morning. And like I had therapy on Monday, which was like so needed, journaled this morning. And so, yes, okay, if I hadn't have known that, I still think I would have figured that out for myself because I was already kind of like a little bit there. But I think that therapy is great, but you got to step away from being the victim, right? So it's all about being understanding, being accountable and being able to say, okay, I know why I'm being like this. And yeah, especially in a marriage, like you'll know this, like it's, you only live with someone, it's hard to catch yourself in the moment. Conversations are happening, comments are getting thrown around, and sometimes you don't catch yourself as quick enough. But after the moment, it's being able to be like, actually, I know why I reacted in that way. Like I'm also really insecure. Like really insecure, like my relationships in the past prior to being married to Luke, like guys cheated on me. I hate it. I hate that I'm so insecure. And so like Luke might go and do something and I won't say anything, but in my brain I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna go and leave me. He's gonna meet someone else. And it's infuriating, but I can't project that onto like him. I need to deal with that because I know that that's like past. And so I think it does help. As much as I understand what that guy's saying about, you know, like my mum says to me, you know, she's 65 or 64, Sal's mum. She's like, I don't want to get into therapy. She was like, why would I open a can of worms only to then just like feel worse?
That's her generation, isn't it?
It fully. And I see it both ways. I do, because I've definitely had to, like I've been on this journey for a really long time now. So I'm 36. I think I had my eating disorder when I was 15. So therapy's been a part of my life for a really long time. But I definitely, when I started the yoga side of things, going into the more spiritual side of stuff, I definitely struggled to step away from therapizing myself in everything.
Yeah.
And analyzing everything. And I was like, oh, I actually just need to be more playful, free movement. I need to be more joyful, surf. Like all of these things, like why do I need to analyze every single conversation? Because a lot of the stuff is just a projection, right? It's got nothing to do with me. It's all about you. What you're saying to me is more about you than me.
100%. 100%. I think we're all a little bit broken.
Oh, we are. We're just like small broken people, like little inner childs, like little sad open
I'd like to think
childs.
I'm quite tall.
But... No, you're not. Tiny.
Yeah.
Cute and tiny.
Yeah, I get hammered by the boys for being short. I always say I'm 6'1", and they always go, "You're 5'11", mate." Like,
aren't you my height? Aren't you 5'7"?
No, I'm a big boy. There's a few bits here I wanted to touch on. So we spoke that you're doing dance. You're dancing quite a lot, you know, when you were younger. And it says here that at 17 you snapped your ACL, needing a knee reconstruction.
Yeah.
I mean, take me back to the moment where when you torn your ACL and all of that. How did it happen and what came after it? Mentally, physically?
Oh my gosh. I was 17. And as a 17-year-old, so it's that year before you leave school where you're planning what you're doing next. And so I was like, I'm going to go to either like dance college if I get in, like actual legit dance school, wanted to be a professional dancer. Who knows if I was good enough, but that's what I wanted to do. Or I was going to go to university and do like a dance or performing arts course there. So everything revolved around movement. So my injury kind of happened in two parts. I actually went skiing, and at the time they thought I had just made like a slight tear. I don't quite know how this all got like confused, but basically I went and had a scan. They missed on the scan that my ACL was literally torn in half. Yeah. I honestly, I was so young, I don't really even remember. And then I went back to school, had arthroscopy, just an in and out kind of like operation. And then I went back to school. I was rehearsing for a dance show. And in the rehearsal for the dance show, literally final rehearsal, did like a leap and just came down on it wrong. It swelled up like a football. And so I went to the hospital, had to have all the fluid drained from it, had more scans, and then went and got a second opinion. And yeah, they basically said that it's completely gone. I was really, really fortunate. The doctor, but he was amazing. And so he was also an NHS doctor. So we saw him privately, but he did the operation on the NHS. And it was awful. It was actually awful. Like I was already going down the road of an eating disorder. As a gymnast growing up, you are in an elite squad. They weigh you. They're not actually allowed to do that anymore. There was like a bill passed recently where they're not allowed to do certain things. But
weigh you?
Yeah. So
you have to be below a certain weight?
As a 13-year-old, actually I was 12 at the time, I was weighed, and then a report would be sent home to my parents with my weight and things. And basically, if you saw a picture of me, you'd be like, what's that sinewy little muscular thing? Like, but I was tall, and for a gymnast, I was on the heavier side, I guess. pure muscle, like nothing else.
The height would make you heavier as well.
Right. And so they said that maybe I could watch what I eat. And so that was like the catalyst. And obviously you do it at 12 years old. That's pretty intense. That was like the catalyst for eating disorders. And then obviously so much of what I did, I was already kind of like struggling. I like through the bullying and through needing to look a certain way, society. It was kind of in that era of like magazines and things like that. And then the injury happened, operation happened, and I couldn't move. I had to cast from my hip to my ankle. You know, you're 17, you want a boyfriend. I didn't turn up for like the final photo for like the year. I remember like that little girl just felt so broken. She was just like, well, I'm worthless now. If I can't dance. And so that was really hard. God, I was really hoping you weren't going to make me cry. But I think you're going to make me cry.
This is what I mean about an empath, though. I can feel that pain.
Yeah. So that was tough. And then I, unfortunately, because I was so bitter and I was so sad, and because it wasn't the world we live in now. You don't have the internet like to teach you physio exercises and stuff. It wasn't like that then. Like you weren't taking photos and documenting every part of your journey. I don't even have a photo of me in that time of my life. It was very different. Like when you had an injury back then, you were really sad and didn't want to be near a screen. Now everyone's like, I'm in hospital. Yeah. Look at me. It's really bizarre. And I turned inwards. I started self-harming. I was cutting myself. I was hitting myself. I was purging, bulimic, really in a really dark place, And yeah, it took a long time to come out of that, I think. And movement's always been such a massive part. And I remember I went to see this rheumatologist, and this is how I found out I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a hypermobility disorder. And she just looked at me, and I was there on my own. And she just looked at me and went, at 17, and she went, you're just going to have to accept that you're never going to be able to dance again. And you are going to have probably arthritis. And by the age of kind of 30 or 40, you may need a wheelchair.
Fuck.
I was 17 and I was told that. And I was like, well, fuck the world then. I was like, if I can't, and people would be like, well, you could teach. I didn't want anything to do with it. I wanted nothing. I didn't go near a dance studio. I didn't go near a gym. I wouldn't do any of it. And and so when you were saying about the Mike Tyson thing, about the violence, to be that gentle, like the violence wasn't outward, the violence was inward. It was so dark, and it was awful. It was really, 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 really bad.
Bless you.
Yeah. But she was resilient, because I somehow got to where I am today.
Look at it like that.
I know. And I always say this.
Properly
I'm like,
wrong as well.
Literally, I'm like, why do I teach free movement? So I can dance my life away and prove everyone wrong. But, to be told that I remember going home to my mom, and she was like, how was the appointment? I think for some reason she dropped me off, and for some reason she couldn't come in with me. And then she was fuming, absolutely fuming. She wanted to go back and find this woman. And I didn't tell her until later on. I was just like, yeah, it's fine.
17-year-old, shattered dreams, and
just
it's such a formative age as well, isn't it? For anyone, but I think maybe even more so for a girl.
I think so as well. I think I hadn't even. I don't think I'd even had a boyfriend at that point. There was so much of my life that was gonna happen in that year. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get a boyfriend. I'm gonna maybe find my dream college, or whatever it was. And then suddenly I'm doing none of that. And I'm looking at my options for going to, and look, everything happens for a reason. And I truly believe that. And so, I look at my knees now and I'm like, they were the catalyst for where I'm at. But I ended up going to work in fashion and interning in London and going down a completely different route. I worked in the corporate world for a really long time. But no, I always got told off for not dressing appropriately.
Yeah.
They were like, do you think that you could maybe not wear flat shoes and wear a heel? I was like, do you know how bad they are for my feet?
Did you never used to turn up in all this hippie clothes, did you? In,
Did I used to have a hippie
in the
voice?
wavy kind of.
No, I was quite. I would wear like flares. I was quite like
That's all right.
bohemian.
That's all right.
I wouldn't be like, this isn't hippie.
I'm just winding you.
This is me wearing my pajamas.
I like
wanted to be
it.
comfortable.
Let's touch on something you just said a minute ago. What was that syndrome? I can't pronounce it.
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
EDS.
Yes.
What is it?
So basically, it has a few different levels to it. There's one form of EDS, which is a hypermobility disorder, which basically means that your joints are very lax. So you can see my party trick.
Oh. For anyone that's not watching, Kat's arm is twisted like the Exorcist's neck in that little girl. It's gone round the wrong way.
So that's my party trick.
Oh. Elbows and knees make me go funny, but yeah, go on.
My knees go the whole way back. So there's that side of it. There's also a much more severe side to that, whereby people's joints will dislocate. But some people's are to the point where they're bedridden because the dislocation is so much. Now, Ehlers-Danlos a lot of people have it. So the hypermobility disorder is actually quite common. The other sides of it are less so, and they're still doing a lot of research around it. But it also is massively linked to like fatigue, because obviously the way your body is like having to function to like make up for like those joints and having to hold yourself, digestive issues, skin issues, like it's basically, I can blame everything on my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. But I don't though.
So the part of it that I find interesting is I used to hear that if you did too much yoga, you would make the tendons around your muscles and joints that are meant to hold you in get too loose and people could get injured from it. Right? I've heard this. I don't know how true it is. I was going to ask you. You can almost be too flexible if you do too much of it.
I would.
And I have friends that have had to taper it down a bit because supposedly they've got
too flexible. I mean,
I know I might be butchering that, but something to do with obviously we're designed to be rigid to a point to actually hold us in place.
Of course.
Hence what you just spoke about.
Of course. I don't know that just anybody can get to that. I would say that those people would probably have been like on the verge of kind of like quite an open, flexible body. Like I have to be careful.
So this is what I was going to say. So someone with EDS, should you be doing yoga?
I get asked that quite a lot, actually. Yes, absolutely. Because I think when we say the word yoga as well, let's quickly just humor me for a moment.
No, go.
Yoga, we have so many different brackets within yoga. So we're thinking of yoga in terms of the asana. The asana is just the movement, right?
Yeah.
But also within the asana, there's completely different types of yoga. Obviously, it started with hatha and then ashtanga. Now we have like yin and we have power yoga, and everyone's got a different type of yoga going on.
And what are these things you're talking about? For anyone that's listening that doesn't know, and I don't know some of them.
So
are they different movements?
Different movements. So the asana literally is
What's the standard
movement.
one that we would do at Rise, with you got the corpse pose, you got the downward dog, you got the...
Yeah, that's I would probably say that's a vinyasa class. It's probably Ashtanga vinyasa.
And you go through like sequence.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really common, and they're all great. Like I definitely have had to understand the reason why yoga was amazing for me is because with my injuries and with my Ehlers-Danlos, I couldn't do anything high impact. So I couldn't go back to gymnastics. I couldn't really go back to dancing, at least in the way that I was. So finding yoga, also Pilates is also great. Finding things that were lower impact, but were still going to get me strong were really important. But there also comes this point in yoga, before the asana, we have the yamas and the niyamas. The yamas and the niyamas are like these...
I don't know what language this is.
Sanskrit. So the yamas and the niyamas are like your rules for life or your observances. And they include things literally like ahimsa, non-violence. And that's both to yourself and to other people. Satya, truthfulness. Socha, your cleanliness. So they're literally... The yamas and the niyamas, you look so confused, are pretty much the original self-help book that you read everywhere right now. Self-study, use of right energy, and all of these things. So if you're practicing yoga properly, you would be mindful of all of those things, even when you're in a movement class. Therefore, I don't want to push my body to like its furthest degree. And I was doing that. I was the person that was like, how deep can I get in this pose? And how far can I push my back bend? For what? Literally, it's ego. It's all.
It sounds overwhelmingly complex.
It's a beautiful practice.
Because when I think of yoga, like I always say this to our yoga instructor at Rise, Faye, I say, look, I'm happy. This is my thoughts of it. It's meditation while stretching. That's how I like.
Okay.
That's how I box it in my brain. And I love meditating.
Yeah.
I don't love stretching. I need to do more of it.
Yeah.
But I struggle to do them together.
Okay.
So I would rather just do a stretch class and then do a separate meditation class, if you know what I mean. I struggle to put them together because when I watch yogis do yoga, they look incredibly peaceful.
I think
and they look graceful and they look like they're really kind of zenned out. I'm throwing some buzzwords out there for you. But when I do it, it's a fucking
it's a lot.
Like downward dog. My shoulders, because I'm not that stretchy, so I'm like in almost like a shoulder press position.
Yeah.
My delts are screaming at me. Yet Faye will be like, "Oh, this is a relaxing pose." Fucking ain't relaxing for me.
Downward. Anyone that tells you downward facing dog once upon a time might have said that, but
when you go back into it, maybe not relaxing, but it's a pose where you should be able to kind of like sit into it and be okay in that position. I'm not. I have to bend my. I'm doing a weird.
I would absolutely say that's like the messaging. That I'd say that's the old school messaging. Every single human body is completely different. And for you to be told that you should, in an ideal world, be comfortable to spend 5 to 10 breaths in this position makes you feel slightly less worthy because you're like, why am I finding it so hard?
I just presumed because I'm not flexible yet or I'm new to it.
Yeah, but and if you've got that level of like understanding of yourself and you can be like, nice to yourself and you'd be like, okay, it's fine, it's just because I'm new to it. But imagine like for some people that would probably be quite detrimental.
Yeah.
That would probably be a bit like, oh God, like if I'm not finding downward facing dog easy, like I just shouldn't do yoga. But
what I ended up doing with her, because obviously this is to me, right, not in the class.
Of course.
As in, to me personally, I'm chatting to her. So what we ended up doing is she gave me like a stretch routine, I would call it.
Nice.
But it was basically like a dulled down version with blocks and stuff.
Perfect.
So I could do it every day, build up, because I like the idea of going to a yoga class. But when I get there, it probably isn't as, maybe I don't need to go to that type of yoga. Maybe it's the other one I need to go to. Is it yin?
You could go to yin. It's much more restorative.
There's one where you're sort of like laying a lot and it's more in your head.
Yeah. Well,
like a dead person.
So yin, you're going to be using loads more props and you're going to be really supported. The idea being, for me personally, there are kind of physical things that people will say about fascia and stuff like that. I would personally say for yin, for me, is all about tapping into the emotional body. Okay. Like if you're going to sit in quite for some poses, it's almost like stress position, for some of them, you're going to sit in that for like 4 or 5 minutes. You're going to be really asking yourself, like, what's alive for me? What's coming up for me? There's some shapes that I'll do for 5 minutes and I'll like want to scream at someone or I want to throw up.
I can't sit with my legs crossed. So, like,
it doesn't make you a bad yogi.
You did it in assembly when you were 8 years old and you haven't done it since as a guy. So, like, even when we do that thing, when we sort of sat in the beginning, I have to put like 2 blocks under my bum.
But that's fine.
And then I feel a bit more comfortable. Yeah. But obviously you feel a little bit... You're in a class and
that's old. I do feel like that is something that for the teacher, language is everything.
She's great.
And I'm sure she is a wonderful
she doesn't
teacher.
Make me feel like, but it's more like...
No, but you feel like that. And also being a guy in yoga as well, you're already probably
There's only about 2 of us in there,
right, so you're already the minority. You're already being conditioned. Your whole upbringing has been conditioned as a guy to make you feel like I've got to be better. And like, no offense, but that is like the patriarchy, right? Like I've got to be the better person. So guys struggle when they come to yoga sometimes because they're not always so good. And then when they have to take a block, but unfortunately we kind of have this idea in yoga somehow that using props makes it less than, and it makes it like, oh, if you need the blocks, like you're not as good. I think you can practice yoga without even practicing yoga. This is why, like, the yamas and the niyamas are the first and second limbs of yoga. So you have the 8 limbs of yoga. Asana, the movement, that's third. You got the pranayama, the breath. Also important. You got the concentration, the meditation.
It sounds like Buddhism.
But, yeah. So
but almost.
It's where a lot of the principles. I mean, it's not connected in that sense of like there isn't a religious, well, I mean, there is a religious connection, but there's a lot of similarities,
Just when you were running through all those kind of things, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah. It's yeah.
I mean, was the Buddha flexible?
I mean, I reckon so, because couldn't he sit in just lotus? Who knows? Who knows? What a guy.
Oh,
what a
God,
guy.
What a guy. Just taking it back slightly, obviously we were talking about kind of that period with the ACL and the mental struggles and stuff like that. But like, what were some of the coping mechanisms you think you might not have known at the time, right? Because you were young, but looking back now, the sources of support, the coping mechanisms, some of the stuff you did maybe to get you out of that space. Do you recall any of them now? It's easier for you to look back now and go, I should have done X, Y, and Z.
I've always actually struggled talking about my recovery because I don't have like this kind of like step-by-step thing that I did. My honest answer, so I got put into, have you heard of the Priory?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got put into the Priory. At first I was an outpatient and then I became an inpatient.
At 17?
18. I think I was 18 when I was in there.
How long were you in there for?
I wasn't in there for that long because I left.
Anyway.
I think I was only in there for a few weeks. But I honestly, it got to this point. So I got this boyfriend, and though he didn't treat me that nicely towards the end of our relationship, I have so much gratitude for him in that time of my life, because he was just there. And I remember he came to see me at the Priory. He came and stayed with my parents while I was there. And he came and saw me at the Priory. And we went for a walk down by the lake. And I was obviously so smitten. I was obviously so in love with him at the time that I just turned around to him and I said, I'm really exhausted and bored of feeling sad. So I don't want to be ill anymore. And so I just made him a promise. I literally sat there next to that lake and I said, I promise I'm not going to purge anymore. Because purging, so I was bulimic / anorexic. And purging was obviously that just because I didn't purge didn't make me recovered, of course. Like I had a lot of mental work to do, but that was the action, right? So remove the physical action from it. I had mostly stopped cutting myself by then anyway, because I didn't really want to have scars. I was doing all the damage on the inside. And so I basically fell in love with a band guy, a lead singer in a band, and promised him that I wasn't going to purge. And it wasn't plain sailing. I wasn't suddenly healed. I absolutely relapsed, but it was the catalyst for basically getting better.
So what you are saying there...
And it's so not necessarily a good message.
No, I actually think it's a great message if you just dig a bit deeper. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying there, what helped you recover was love, connection, and talking.
Yeah. And literally, and feeling like somebody had my back. You know, like he was from up in Cheshire and he drove down and he stayed in my family house, even though I wasn't there, only for a few days. I'm making it sound like he was there for months, only for a few days. And then drove his little red car to come and see me at the Priory.
Such a girl comment, red car. What car was it? Just a red car.
Couldn't even, was it a No, maybe it wasn't even red. I think it was a Peugeot 206. It might have been blue. And it's so true. It was like, it was
I think
feeling.
It's a strong message what you're saying.
I think it took for me to have, but the thing is, what was interesting though, I think it was about having a male. So and this will be a podcast for another time, my relationship with men and the male figure.
And women?
But no. We're going deep here, Ty. Jeez.
Go.
My best friend had found out that I was purging, and she was really concerned about me, and we were so close at the time, and she was really worried, and so she printed off loads of stuff from like the NHS website.
What a legend.
Very cute. And she gave it to me. And either I wasn't ready or it just wasn't, I don't know. I think that because maybe my dad had obviously always been the one that was like busy and working. I mean, my mum worked, but my dad was working more. So maybe because I always had to strive for like his attention, it was almost like for a boy, a male, to believe in me, it for some reason meant more. It meant that much more.
Well,
and I was like, okay.
It's filling the gap that you probably didn't have,
and
that we spoke about earlier,
yeah.
that attention piece.
And which is so mad, because then obviously as soon as my parents found out, because my parents, I like hid it so well. I mean, like, obviously I lost weight, but I was also not I would kind of kept like a balance. Mm-hmm. Like I made out that everything was fine. My dad is kind of that generation that is kind of very matter of fact. It was like, just stop being sick then. And he loves me so much. Like, he loves me dearly. And he is like so proud of me and my biggest supporter, and would hate to think, but that for his mind, his growing up, his childhood didn't allow him the emotion to understand what I was going through. My mum could obviously understand it, but I was ashamed, so I didn't want to tell her. So having this boy, believe in me, I was like, oh, okay. And so then that kind of continued.
Weirdly poetic, that, isn't it?
Yeah, strangely so. And so then it was a long old journey, like years of trying to get through it.
That generational thing's mad, isn't it? Because like, stiff upper lip, just get on with it.
I know.
Like, you imagine the period that those guys lived in and grew up in. And then we always have this battle, right? Was that the better period, or was this? Are we too soft now, and were they too hard? And do we need to find something in the middle? Because if we're being honest, it's getting a bit ridiculous 100, now.
And I am also I to a point. I'm all for the feels, right? I love the feels, but I think that we have lost the joy and the ease of life because we're so stuck in the pain and the sadness. And I do fully believe the only way out is through. So you have to go through it, because obviously if you're going to sit with suppressed trauma, you're going to find dis-ease in the body, et cetera, et cetera. I am a full believer of that. But yes, I think that there does need to be a little bit of balance there.
I mean, you're coming from a good place, and because you and I are pretty much the same age. So we've grown up.
Are we? You look so much older.
Well, I'm not even going to say it. You've got this syndrome, haven't you?
What do you mean?
Well, that syndrome, I was told by Josh.
Our friend,
for anyone listening,
our friend has told Ty that Ehlers-Danlos syndrome makes people look young. It's not true.
Well, apparently you got more collagen than me.
Not in the way that he's making
That's
out.
why
that
your facial skin looks younger than mine.
No, I'm just fortunate because I do so much yoga.
I've had a tough life. All right. I'm 35.
I'm actually older.
Yeah, I'm 36 in May, though.
Okay, happy birthday for me.
But what I'm saying is we've grown up, we're analog and digital, aren't we? So we've grown up right on the cusp, I would say. Like, I remember growing up with no computers and playing on the street, no mobile phones, and then mobile phones and technology, and now we're glued to them.
Yeah. Luke and I were talking about this last night.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of like my 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old cousins now, or even younger.
Scary.
Like, they're growing up to a fucking weird world.
Oh, we were literally having this conversation yesterday, and I was like, where are all the kids playing on their bikes and their rollerblades and like running up and playing knockdown ginger and like running up and down the road?
Knockdown ginger? You mean knock run?
Knockdown ginger.
Knockdown ginger? What? Who calls it knockdown ginger? It's a bit. Is it racist? What is it? Hairist? Colorist?
I don't know why it's called that.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've never heard that one before.
Knockdown, what do you call it?
Knocked or run, isn't it? Not run or...
Maybe I just heard it wrong.
Anyway.
Knockdown ginger.
But I agree. Where are all the children?
Like, and that is, it's sad. And we were talking to a friend yesterday, and he was like, yeah, we purposely wanted to move to like a cul-de-sac so it was, a little bit more enclosed, so it felt safer for the kids. And he was like, still only my kids are out. No one else's kids are out. Like, even where I live in a really residential space, I never see children. I never see families going on bike rides. Like, okay, we live actually by a school. I see the kids go to school and then I see them go back. I don't see children outside playing unless they're on the beach. Maybe we don't see them because they're on the beach.
No, but I've never thought of it. And now you've said it, I'm fortunate to be around whenever I want to be. And I'm around a lot,
Same.
At the times when you might see them as well.
Yeah.
And at weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't see them as much as...
And it's so, and when I was growing up, you'd get home from school, quickly get changed. You'd be like, Mum, I'm going to go knock for, I don't know, Lucy down the road. And then she'd be like, okay, but don't cross any roads, only stay around the block. I'm like, okay.
Do you think that it's got that bad in terms of safety? Or do you think that we're bubble wrapping too much?
Both.
A bit of both.
I think, but I
also think it's got worse then.
I think that obviously there's more information available. That's what you've got to remember is that like now, okay, maybe you'd watch the news when you were, you know, our parents would watch the news and it would be like XYZ has happened in, I don't know, Hull, which was so far away. And sorry, Hull, not to say bad things happened there, but it was the first thing that came to my mind. Now, everyone's got a Facebook community for their local neighbourhood watch. Everyone's got a WhatsApp group for their neighbours. Everyone is like policing everything. And so I think that we're now just more aware. I don't think it's actually worse. I think we just have more information. And therefore, we're scared. And therefore, we're acting out of fear to the children. And you can't say and the thing is, you can't say that then they're wrong. I mean, I don't have kids. I'm pretty sure I would probably be like that. Although I hope to think that I'll live on a farm where the kids can just roam in the forest. Maybe get eaten by bears, but hey.
I always think that, like, I haven't got kids yet. And obviously there's something that I really want if I'm blessed with them. But how would I be? Because I also understand how important challenge is. You know, I've had struggle and challenge. And I understand that most of my like better qualities have actually come out of that struggle. So would I let them go out till the sun goes down on their own with no mobile phone, no tracking device, you know, like all my friends with their kids, like they've got the, you know, the Find My Phone app on. And
do you remember you used to have to ring home from a payphone?
Yeah.
I'd be like, Mum, I've missed the bus just to let you know I'm going to be home. Like, you know, in half an hour.
I used to remember you'd ring your friend and agree to meet somewhere, and that was it. And you'd hope that they were going to be there, right? And if you were late like me, you were.
Today, by the way, everyone, Ty was late for our interview. I'm a Virgo, and I was not best pleased.
I'm late to everything.
But no, I agree in that, like, I do think that so much character building does come from challenges. However, I do also believe that children nowadays have so many more challenges in so many ways than we did just through the world of technology. You know, like I got bullied in school, but then I would come home and I would be able to leave that world. Okay, other than when MSN Messenger came around.
You can't detach
You
now.
can't now. And so as much as I just think that they're up against it as it is anyway. I mean, I don't know how I'd raise a child, which is why I'm still so confused. Like some days I want one and other days I'm like, oh, well, it's tricky out there. I'd rather not.
Yeah, I hear you on that front. I guess I've always had quite a traditional upbringing, right? Mum and dad, the culture they're from, and they're still married, and they're still like, you're sort of, it's embedded in you that you grow up and you create a family. And that's kind of your life's task from the era they grew up in the part of the world they grew up in. That's what you see. But then sometimes you're right, I sort of think, well, selfishly, I quite like doing what I want to do when I want to do it.
Don't I just, my gosh.
And I look at friends with kids and how difficult that is. But then I also think like how rewarding it must be, you know, like at the end of it.
So is having a dog. No, I do. No,
I've
I
got
do.
a cat, but
Not the same.
No, it's not.
It's not the same. I fully agree. And that's why I'm so
on the fence.
I have no idea. Time is ticking.
I also believe that, you know, in a good way, that the pressure's dropped off a little bit of that. You know, you're finding people getting married later, not getting married at all. You're finding people having kids much later, not having kids at all.
And I think for women,
we're acceptable.
And I think also people are way more championing of women who want to stay in business, who want to like further their own careers, who don't want to be a stay-at-home mum. Like I love my work. I also maybe might want a child at some point, but I also still always want to have my career. So that's obviously a lot more accepted nowadays.
Massively, I think.
Which is obviously a bonus. But at the same time...
I mean, depends how deep you want to go, right? Because then this is a whole conversation about like, is it tipping the wrong way? And is that why society's crumbling, et cetera, et cetera? Have you ever seen any of that stuff?
What?
Have you not?
What?
No,
what?
Have you not?
What? No, I like to stay in my own little unicorn bubble where women are going to take over the world and it's perfect.
Yeah. There's a lot of chatter online at the moment that I've heard and read in other places about like kind of, without getting too bad, the Western world and why it's imploding a little bit compared to other parts of the world. And they're saying that some of it's down to structure and loss of faith, loss of belief, loss of kind of that system that was created from years and years ago. And it's
So
not
do you
going the
mean
same
loss
way.
of men being in charge?
I don't know if that is what they were saying. That's what it sounds like what I'm saying.
Well, only because all of
was-
those things that you talk about, it was always a male at the head of them, right? Like religion always had like a male at the head of it,
so maybe
right?
that's what. But I'm seeing a lot of it at the moment online. A lot of it on that shitty TikTok app. But
See, why I don't even have it.
so
Don't
what I've done
download it.
what I've done on that app, when I first went on it, it consumes you with like random cat videos and fucking people
Cute.
falling off a tree, and they're nice for like 10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
But they drain your brain.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I went through and I've only follow stuff that is quite educational for me now. If I go on and don't go on for you, I just go on following.
Oh, okay.
It's like snippets of podcasts, snippets of professors that I like, snippets of
Yeah.
experts that I like listening to. And I'm picking up, and again, how many podcasts think they're experts? Podcasters.
But this is also the scary thing now, is that we want to consume content in the space of 10 seconds, but a 10-second clip can be so far out of context.
It is
wild.
Well, it has to be to get the views.
To get right. And that's the thing. I'm very intrigued to see what clip you'll put together
I'll
to
make
try and
something up.
get people to watch this podcast or listen to this podcast.
We'll use a bit of AI, pretend your voice, and just make you say something that you didn't say.
Deep
and then
fake.
put it out, yeah.
No,
Proper
deep fake.
deep fakes, yeah.
Oh my gosh, don't do
Yeah.
it.
It is
Don't
funny,
do
isn't it?
Hilarious.
Do you meditate?
Yes.
No, okay, love. Meditation, I just want to touch on that before we kind of get to the end. When you say, is that breath work? Is that yoga? Do you do it all together? Do you do it separately? Is your meditation a separate
Yes.
endeavor?
Yes. Because
And how are you meditating? Are you sitting in a room? I've done those guided ones where you're listening to your breath and like kind of controlling
Yep.
that. I've done ones where your eyes are shut. Tried to do it on my own. And there's been times when I've meditated and I've got, not a lot, maybe 3 times in my life, that I felt like I was floating and it felt amazing. I can't get there. And then I try a few times and my attention span is rubbish, as you know.
you're trying too hard.
And then I'm like, fuck this, I'm done, I'm out of here. And now what I've tried to do with meditation is not see it as a go and sit with your legs crossed in a dark room and breathe, more as a take a moment out the day, could be anywhere, sat in my car outside the coffee shop, anything for a second, for a moment of stillness.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it in that sense.
That's beautiful. And that's super important. So like a micro meditation. So it's actually, I was talking about this the other day. So about how we show up in a space. Like we were saying about going to the coffee shop and like being the way you are is altered by the people that are around you. So if you can take like 1 minute in your car to close your eyes and take some deep breaths, you can tune in to really what is true for you in that moment and hope that you can be in alignment with that when you go into the coffee shop. Okay, maybe you'll get taken out of it, but maybe that was also what was meant to happen. Maybe you were meant to be taken by the excitement and you were meant to be made to feel a little bit better. Meditation for me, obviously it comes with if I do a longer yoga practice, then I'll meditate after yoga. So movement for me is really important to prepare me for meditation. Because and because of your ADHD, you will find that as well, that you'll find if you meditate after your exercise, you will hopefully, not guaranteeing you, but you'll hopefully find it a lot easier to just concentrate and to ground.
Okay.
Because you're like me, like we have to exert. Okay, we have to exert energy to be able to feel calm. Like if I just don't do anything, I feel agitated, I feel irritable. I don't feel good that way. And that's why when I was talking about depression before, like I'm not a depressive, I didn't handle depression in that I laid in bed all day. I handled depression that I'd like walk along the promenade like a power woman, just to kind of exert that energy. So for me, and it was always done that in a yoga practice, you'd start with your pranayama, you'd do your asana, the movement, and then you'd meditate.
Yeah.
Because you're preparing the body to be able, and also you're preparing the body physically. So to be doing those movements, to sit cross-legged is really hard for a lot of people, like we were saying before. So if you can prepare your body for that meditation, physically, mentally, then you're going to find it a lot easier. But yeah, meditation, I do slip. I'm not going to say that I have been meditating every single day for the last 10 years. I absolutely haven't. Like there's times where I just let it go and I like really struggle to get back into it. Time of day, finding your time of day for me has been really crucial. I'm too tired in the morning, as in like not too tired, but like if I've just woken up and just opened my eyes, I can't then close my eyes again and sit because I'm a little bit too in that sort of like brain, like sort of like sleepy brain state. Once I'm in the middle of my work day, I can't necessarily step away for half an hour to meditate. So mine is at like 4:00. So for me, 4:00 works really well. Doesn't get in the way of like cooking dinner, evening plans, going out. Doesn't get in the way of like my most energetic time of the day, which is obviously like around lunchtime. I'm not super hungry. I haven't like my lunch has gone down. So 4:00 is a really good time. But that took a really long time for me to figure out. It was like testing so many theories.
So I was trying waking up and doing it in the morning. It was part of my morning routine. And as you said, I just couldn't.
Yeah.
Because when I wake up, it's loud when I try and sleep. It just explodes in my brain. And then I'm trying to sit on the sofa quickly before I open the blinds and so it's dark and trying to effectively go back to the state of dreaming and falling asleep and kind of, but I can't.
But no.
I've got that meeting at 9. And I'm like, stop thinking about it. Concentrate on your breath.
So what you should try instead, which was like a game changer for me, is instead of meditation in the morning, do morning pages, which is journaling, but not in like the journaling in the sense of like, so morning pages, it's like a practice that was developed through a book called The Artist's Way. And originally it was developed for writers and artists that had like writer's block and stuff. But all it is literally you just brain dump. It doesn't need to make any sense. It's literally everything you've just said. I've got a meeting at 9. Why am I thinking about the fact that I've got a meeting at 9? Why am I even writing that I've got a meeting at 9? Oh, and I haven't put the washing on. Oh, I really wish I could meditate at this time. Why can't I meditate? It's every single thought.
Offloading, yeah.
And it is just getting it out. And then by the time you've done that, you're like, a moment, a second, a split second of clarity and stillness. And you're like, maybe now I could meditate. Or maybe you meditate a bit later. But I'm the same. For me, I'm also very energized in the morning and I want to get on with things. So I need to do it after that.
I find probably the biggest lesson I learned from trying it against most of these quote unquote buzzword stuff that we're talking about, meditating, cold water therapy, yoga, all this stuff that kind of exploded after lockdown 1.
Yeah.
Where everyone trying journaling, all this stuff. I started all of it same, lockdown 1, 2020. The biggest lesson I guess I learned from the meditation thing is the power of a pause. And I don't mean that in terms of physically me in a car on my own or in a room on my own. I mean when I'm now communicating with people, they say something and it riles me up and I can feel my blood pressure going and I can feel my heart rate rising. And I just pause for a second and I just take a breath and I almost kind of take myself out of the room for a minute, even though I'm stood in front of them. It's done me wonders. Yeah. Because that
so
kind
powerful.
Of, that like short, snappy, hot-headed 18-year-old, it hasn't gone away, right? No. There's, as in the worlds of Dumbledore, there's light and dark in all of us. It depends what path we choose. That person is still in here somewhere. So I am actively kind of not suppressing it, but being aware of it and letting it come up and going back down. Otherwise, I might be snappy. I might be blunt. I might be hot-headed. I might get angry quick.
But it's so amazing that you can do that. Because imagine if the whole world
I haven't got it
could
completely
do that.
right, but I'm trying.
No, but like, it's something I'm trying as well. But imagine if we could all do that. Because also the pause as well gives the other person a moment to really just think about what they said as well. And I honestly, I'm with you. It's something that I try. I'm not so good at it in my marriage.
but okay, so this is the other thing, right? So there's a lot of things I can do externally, 10 out of 10. I can't do internally very well.
Yeah.
So I can give advice. I'm the person that most of friends come for advice, for help, for all this kind of, all the good stuff. But I struggle to stand in the mirror and tell myself the advice. And then if I tell myself the advice, I can't take it. As in I can't. It's so hard to be honest with yourself, isn't it?
For sure.
Like properly honest.
But isn't that just training and trying and just slowly but surely you chip away at it? Like if you keep at it, no?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still working on it as well, like fully. Like I can hold the space in my retreats and yet I can tell everyone to go and like look in the mirror and tell themselves how beautiful they are. But then when I'm struggling with my skin, I don't believe it and I'm crying. You know?
Or you have I have loads of time for everyone, but I might be really short with my wife.
Right. The person you
I should
love
have the most time for.
Exactly.
Yeah. The person I would die for.
Literally.
Without hesitation.
Yeah.
You know, like, and sometimes I can't understand it in my own head. I'm like, why the fuck am I like that?
Yeah. I know. I don't even have any answers either. I just feel like we're all just working at it, right? It's all just like training. We're literally having to rewire and retrain the brain. It's a lot easier to tell everyone else what they can do with their life, what they should do without, taking it on yourself.
No, you're right. Last thing, Kat.
Yes.
What is next for you?
Oh, what's next for me? More retreats. I have been...
Where can people find your retreats, by the way?
Oh, so retreats are Soul Sanctuary. Everything's on Soul Sanctuary. So if you ever need to find me, and actually just the better content, don't follow me personally. I'm not very good on social media. Follow Soul Sanctuary. It's more educational. You'll get to learn a lot more about what yoga really is. So obviously you can find me via the app and the platform. But then, retreats. We're going to Nicaragua next year.
Wow.
That sold out before I even announced it, which was pretty amazing. I've got another retreat in Portugal this year. There's still one space if anyone wants to join me. And then, just planning more retreats. This year I told myself I was having a rest. I don't know how well that's going, but I have been working really hard for the last 5-6 years on my business, and it has grown and it is beautiful and it was amazing. But I think this year is my time to just marinate in that and to just bask in it and be like, this is really cool. And I don't have to constantly strive for the next thing. And so I'm really trying that this year. So it's like almost when you say like, what next? I'm like, who knows?
Yeah.
I'm kind of just, I don't want to keep having the next plan and the next plan and the next plan. So we'll see.
No pressure.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying.
You're not putting it on yourself.
We hope.
Appreciate your time, Kat.
Thanks for having me.
Fun.
It's been delightful.
Yeah, are you still cross-legged?
I'm half cross-legged. I had to stretch out my dodgy knee.
Okay, fair enough. Legend, thank you.